Hey, Tramer1000 here, and I'm doing a tutorial on how to make epic ballast and grass between your siding tracks. You usually don't see this much grass between sidings, but I mean it looks really, really nice just to have a track like that, to look down it. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a tutorial here. These are the things you're going to need. I'll point them out and say what they are. First up, on the far left, we've got Woodland Scenic Cement. Now, for me, preferably, you do not want to plainly just use this and spray it down. And even if when you are spraying it down, you also have to cover up your track too. You don't want glue on the rails to dry before you can wipe it off. We have Woodland Scenic's fine ballast right here, medium ballast, and fine blended turf. We also have two colors of acrylic paints, green and orange. Now this is only if you have green and orange available. If you have a certain paint that you know will work and it's a brown base color, then that's perfect. Use that. This is just because this is what I have available. This is isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol. If you don't have this, you can substitute using dish soap. Just make sure there's no bubbles, and you don't want it's going to be a 50-50 mixture of either this or dish soap mixed with the Woodland Scenic glue. But either of those work. I'm just using rubbing alcohol because sometimes the bubbles can get out of hand, and I don't have too much dish soap on hand. Last thing you're going to need is probably just something to mix the glue in, and I have a little container for mixing ballast in that I can just kind of wipe it out. The only other thing you're going to need is a brush, paintbrush, fairly large, and something to put the paint on. So let's get started. Alright, so here's how to mix the paint. First off, we're going to take our acrylic orange, and we need a good bit of this for the siding. That's a pretty large amount. Now, we don't need very much green. It takes barely any green, so I'm just going to put that in a separate part of my mixing paint mixer. There we go. It's really not that much, and I might not even use all of this green. So I'm just going to get a little bit of green and start mixing it with the orange. And you just keep adding green to get the color that you want. You don't want to put too much in at once and get this really greenish brown color. It doesn't look great. Although you can use, I use the same stuff here to weather some of my freight cars. It's just maybe different colors. Alright, so it looks like you want to get to the point where you're not seeing any green or any orange. You're actually just seeing brown. Alright, so I'm going to keep adding green until I get the color that I want. Alright, so I got this fairly nice earth brown, and I'm going to apply it to the layout. Let's just get this engine off the tracks here. Alright, so this is all you do. You don't even need to get perfect coverage. You just start applying and get as much as you want. You don't need everything. The area that you most need it is where the turf is going to be, because there's going to be little patches in the turf where you might be able to see some dirt, and you just don't want to see tabletop. Whenever you have a switch point like this that is able to move in and out, you always want to have the ballast go around that switch point. For example, right here, I don't have any ballast near here, and I can go back in and maybe add a little bit, but you want to make sure that your switches are still able to function properly after this, because of course the ballast is going to get glued down, and you don't want it sticking to your switches. Alright, so now I'll be mixing the ballast, and this is something you don't necessarily have to do, but I'm doing it because I look for a certain consistency in the ballast. You need about 25% of medium ballast to 75% fine ballast. And the medium ballast is more just to add texture, but if you have all medium ballast, then what's going to happen is sometimes the particles can be too large. It's just stuff like that. It's something I prefer to do. Alright, so now I'm actually going to be laying down the ballast. All I'm going to do here is kind of line it up with where I want the ballast to be going. And I'm just going to tap the little bowl that I have it in. So once you've pretty much got the inside of your track ballasted, now you don't have to actually ballast it perfectly, but what I'm going to go do now is I'm going to go and kind of sweep the ballast up onto the railroad ties. And I'm using just a regular small brush for this. I forgot to mention that in the things you'll need. Sorry. And try not to touch the paint too much with your brush. Of course, you don't want paint sticking to the brush and then the railroad ballast sticking to the brush as well. So yeah, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to put all of this up on the ties, and then when I'm done, I'm going to push it back off the ties, and that'll just get the ballast up in between the ties, and it'll look really nice. And one thing I need to stress here is you don't want leftover ballast still on the ties. It does not look very realistic unless it is a, what is it called? Just a spur, like some really old spurs on CSX main lines. Definitely, like the ballast goes all over the tracks, and you sometimes can't even see the. Alright, so I've finished the ballast, and now I'm going to move on to applying the fine green turf. Alright, so this is how I mix up my glue. Using the Woodland Scenic glue, I'm gonna put maybe a quarter of an inch worth of this stuff in my plastic cup. Alright, so that's just about how much I need there. It's basically half part Woodland Scenic's glue to half part rubbing alcohol. So I'm just going to pour this in. And that's about half. Now for this, I'm not actually putting entirely all turf in the middle. So I will put turf for the majority, but in some parts I'm going to add ballast. And that way you kind of just, you get an effect that the grass isn't actually supposed to be there, and that it's just kind of grown up in between the ballast. So I'll be putting down both fine turf and ballast. So usually, I can just put down fine turf, and then wherever there's a hole, just put some ballast in there. So now that I've finished putting in all the grass, I'm going to go around with my glue bottle, like this glue bottle, and if I just focus in over here, all I'm going to do is just dribble this glue along, like this. Now you want to kind of get as much down as you can. You'll see where, like, in some areas how it'll be darker where you put glue than others. You just want to make sure everything gets some glue on it.